last time we pretty much highlighted the problem of uh, what I will call uncontrolled blood sugar, or poor metabolic health, and the fact that it has its hands in so many, many, many different things that people suffer. When you're talking of people, you're talking of arthritis, you're talking of stroke, high blood pressure, kidney disease, um, problem with the eyes, and all of those things. This thing has its hands in every one of those things. And the fact that, the quality of life, the person is living is being impaired, there's weakness and pretty much everything. I am not even naming everything here, but we think we understand that that is a priority area that all of us should keep an eye on. If you've not thought of any part of your area of your health you want to keep an eye on or keep watch on, think about your blood sugar. Very, very important. And also we recognize that, gradually an increasing number of medical experts are beginning to embrace this paradigm shift of the usual thing. You come to your doctor, you tell them your problem, they listen to you, take a history, examine you, run some tests, and then prescribe some drugs, and you go home. They are shifting away from that, and a good deal of evidence-based medical care is being challenged by doctors that are leveraging the what I will call a better scientific approach towards holistic care. There's one doctor, I believe he's in California, that actually he has a facility that he runs, and he incorporates fasting, water only fasting in treating many things, including diabetes and all of these things. So there are people who are doing things now. In fact, there is one doctor, I think I sent us a video of that doctor that said he took, I think, up to 90 of his patients off insulin. So you can imagine these are people that are diabetic, and he was able to take them off insulin with, and that's a medical, we're not talking of this, what you might call alternative medicine medical doctor. This guy is a cardiologist, so these things are backed up by actual scientific studies. And then you might wonder, why is it that these things, you don't really hear them much from your doctor? When you go to your doctor, you don't really hear them talking about these things. It's a whole lot of challenges, and it's going to take time for these things to shift. One such thing is in medical training. The way we are trained in med school is the old paradigm. You learn the pathology, you learn the physiology, you learn the pharmacology, all those things, the things you need to learn to diagnose the disease and treat it. But this other part of leveraging what the body already has and sort of cooperating with it and teaching it to people is not really emphasized. Another reason why you're not seeing it much is because of what I call the reimbursement disincentive. So you go to your doctor, he probably has 15 minutes to see you, and he wants to be paid. So he's not going to spend that 15 minutes teaching you about how to watch your weight and how to watch how you eat, because insurance companies are not going to pay him for that. So he will spend the 15 minutes doing things that he can code that are reimbursable. So that's why I call it the reimbursement disincentive. There's a disincentive there to really give patients what they need. And the third thing I recognize is what I call special interests. For example, big pharma. I mean, there was this drug that was used for depression. Trying to remember the name. That drug, that single drug, before it became before the other companies can manufacture it, you know, when the company has gotten their 10-year thing that they can get, I think it's 15 years, it has already made billions of dollars for this company, just one drug. So you can imagine their interest in making sure that these drugs keep on being prescribed. And that's where the big money is. So there's no incentive to go away from prescribing medicines every now and then. So we are now being made aware that it is not only what you hear from your doctor that will help you. There are other things that you need to hear. There are other things you need to do that will help you. And that's really, really what my aim is here, to increase our awareness about some of these things you are not going to hear from your doctor. So we're going to talk about 4 major areas of things we can do to help us with the problem we identified in the last talk. And I mentioned nutrition, fasting, exercise, and then the 4th one, I call it meditation for want of what else to call it, because I don't want to, of course, meditation, not in the sense of the way people of the world, we talk about meditation, you know, talk about their yoga and their mindfulness issues and all of that. But meditation for us, you know, that God has given us meditation. Joshua 1:8 says, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night. And then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and thou shalt have good success. So that's it right there for you. And I'm thinking, was it in Psalm chapter 1, where it says, blessed is he that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly and all of that. And then down there it says, but he meditates in the law of the Lord day and night, and so on and so forth. So meditation is a 4th one. We may not have time to talk about it today, but that's probably something we're going to talk about sometime in the future. So let's zero in on nutrition. We've already talked a little bit about it in the questions that were being asked, but just an overview of your nutrition, things you eat. I divide them into 2 big buckets: your macronutrients and your micronutrients. Now, your macronutrients will be your proteins, your carbohydrates, your fats, and then I want to include dietary fiber. Very, very important. Even though fiber is part of a good deal of what you eat in carbohydrates, but it deserves its own separate class. It's very important. Then your micronutrients, you have your vitamins. We've talked a little bit about that. You have your minerals, and you have what is called the phytonutrients. The phytonutrients are a whole lot of things that are in the food we eat that is so important, you know, but you don't really hear about them that much. And nobody really has time to talk about them anyway. I've told you, your doctor doesn't have time. You know, he has 15 minutes to see you and code the right thing and then make his diagnosis, and the insurance company pays him. And it's not his fault. It's the way the system is. So I'm not blaming the doctors here. So let's go back to your macronutrients. Let's start with proteins. Now, proteins are the food you eat that provides the structures that actually build your body. Most of the tissues in your body are built from proteins. Your muscles, your brain, your skin, just name it. They are like the building blocks. So if you're not eating good protein, it means that you're not also building good body structure. The only thing I will say to that is what is being emphasized more and more these days is, for example, if you're going to eat meat, eat the one they call grass-fed meat. If you go to the grocery store, you will see some meat labeled grass-fed. That is the meat to eat. And I'll tell you why. There's a downside, though. The downside is that they are a little more expensive compared to the mass-produced meat that is widely available. The reason grass-fed is better is because the grass that these cows eat provides them with the right nutrients to build the right meat, so to say, the right meat for you to eat. And also they reduce the amount of toxins that goes in, that are included in the feeds of these other animals that are made, pretty much factory made, so to say. Not really factory made, but in that style of producing. So you have a better quality of meat, and you have a reduction of toxins that you're eating. I do recognize that they are more expensive to buy, but the way this life is sometimes is that what you fail to pay for one way, you somehow end up paying for it the other way. You understand what I'm saying here?
Yes.
It's okay. Let me put it this way. Let's say you are driving along a road that has tolls, right? And because you don't want to pay the tolls, you take a detour that now compels you to drive 15 miles more than you would have driven. I'm just making up that number. Now, you know what is going on there. You are still paying that toll, even though you don't know it. Why? Because you are burning more gas to travel that extra 15 miles. You're burning more gas. So indirectly, you still end up paying that toll. And that is really what happens. So that is how I will encourage us in that area. So you might say, well, I don't want to spend a little more on buying grass-fed meat, but I know that will not be our portion in Jesus' name. But over time of eating the wrong thing, the person now ends up spending more money because of the ill health situations that arise from that. So that's the little caution I would say there. Then when eggs, for example, eggs are also a very good source of protein. In fact, eggs are considered a complete protein because they seem to have all the essential amino acids, and they have this protein called choline, which is very good for your eyes. Egg, the recommendation these days is to eat free range, what they call free range. Now, if you look at how poultry is raised in the US, you will see that those eggs, those layers, they are put in certain kind of cages. You see this long row of layers, in cages. You see their heads popping out from one end of the cage, and from that end they are fed. Then from the other end, they lay the eggs. Those are caged method, and that's the mass-produced method. There's no way America will produce enough eggs for people to eat without doing it that way. There's just no way. I mean, I don't know any other way. But the other way is to let the chicken or the layer, they just roam about. They put in a certain place, they run about, they catch their food. If you observe how they forage in the village, just that way they go about, eating bugs, eating whatever they have. That is the way that is recommended for them to live and lay their eggs. Those ones that lay eggs that way are called free range. And if you walk into any grocery store now, you see a lot of eggs. If you're buying eggs, just look at the box or whatever is containing those eggs. You will see free range in those eggs, and those are the ones. They're a little more expensive too, but they are better nutritionally for you. And then fish. Fish is a very good source of protein because fish has the fat of fish. Fish has fat as well. It's very, very brain healthy, especially salmon, sardines. Salmons and sardines have, what you call the omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6, and omega-3 fatty acids. These are very, very good fatty acids. So when you eat fish, you're really helping your body, to maintain its immune systems for good heart health and even brain health. I remember in those days when we were students in Lagos, the people want to eat the head of the fish because they believe it makes them brilliant. Well, in those days, they were doing it. They didn't really know the science behind it, but it's actually the fish oil that helps your brain in that manner. So there are certain fish to avoid. I don't believe we eat those fish, like this predator kind of fish. Or that's fish that eat other fish like shark and the other big fish. Those are not good because they tend to accumulate mercury in that fish. So if you're eating fish, I do believe that what most of us eat is, is the better ones, like the tilapias, the salmon, the sardines and all of that. So those ones are safer to eat. So without taking too much time on protein, so let's talk about carbohydrates. Now, I consider the metabolism of carbohydrates very, very crucial in understanding our health and how we have to go about how we eat. Now, carbohydrates are the foods that produce the energy. When you walk, when you jump, when you run, everything you're doing, even when you're sitting still and your brain is, you're doing a good deal of brain work, like Elder Michael will sit down and be doing his mathematics. All of that consume energy. And the energy that you are using to do those things comes from the carbohydrates that you eat. Carbohydrates are things like rice, yam, banana, gari, amala, all those things are carbohydrates. And when you eat them, they are broken down into glucose typically. If it is fruits, they are broken down into glucose and fructose. If it is milk, milk carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose, galactose. But the major broke down product to watch, which has a lot to do with our health, is glucose. and to a good extent, fructose. Now, we've talked about what happens when you eat, how the blood sugar goes up, and under normal circumstances, within 2 hours, it should begin to come down, and so on and so forth. There are certain glucose that you eat, or rather certain carbohydrates that you eat that shoots your blood sugar up fast. And these ones are called the high glycemic index foods or carbohydrates. Typically, these carbohydrates do not have a lot of fiber. So when you eat something like white rice, I think potatoes do have fiber, but not significantly. Although the other potato they call the colored one, I think it's called is it called red potato? Or that one has a good deal of fiber. So, but generally, any carbohydrate that has less amount of fiber is going to have a high glycemic index. And when it does have a high glycemic index, when you eat it within 15, 30 minutes, your blood sugar just boom, goes up. If you're not a diabetic, if you're, your body will handle it and dispose of it the normal way. A good chunk of it goes into doing what it primarily wants to do, which is to provide energy, which means your body begins to metabolize them and burn up the sugar. Then if you ate too much or much of it, the excess of that is stored in the body as glycogen in the muscles and in the liver. It's more like your body also anticipates that there's a time when there will be no food. So it's like putting money in the bank. So it stores the carbohydrate there, the glucose, waiting for that time when there will be no food. However, if we keep on eating and every time there's excess, guess what happens? The body will now begin to, when the glycogen stores are full, the glycogen stores in the muscle and the liver, because there's a limit to which you can store glycogen, that extra glucose now begins to be stored as fat. And that's a long-term storage form of the carbohydrates you eat. And I did mention last time that some people think we get fat by eating fat, because we say the food is fat, that we call that food fat. So when we eat fat, that's when we get fat. But that's not true, really. It is actually from the carbohydrates that we eat. Insulin helps to push them in there, helps to, to store them as glycogen, and also helps to convert them in the long term as fat. And then they begin to accumulate in the fat tissues, the adipose tissues. And then the organs in the body also have a lot of fat there, the visceral fat, the kidneys, all those organs, there's a lot of fat around them. That's part of the stored fat that our body stores. So a little bit about fructose. Now, from the name fructose, you can already imagine that they are mostly from fruits, right? So when you eat your banana, your pineapples, and all those fruits, the major thing they're going to be broken down is glucose and fructose. Now, why am I mentioning fructose? I'm mentioning it because it's important too. Now, your body handles most of your fructose by sending them to the liver. And the liver can easily get overwhelmed. As versatile as it is an organ, I mean, God made a masterpiece there. When you talk of something that I don't believe any chemical factory in the world comes close in rivaling the liver. It is just phenomenal. Now, but it can get overwhelmed too, as versatile as it is. So when too much fructose gets loaded in the liver may not be able to handle them. And then a condition that is called, I think it's some form of a fatty liver. I'm trying to remember exactly what they call it. And when someone begins to develop fatty liver, that leads to other forms of liver problems like cirrhosis and the rest of them. So eating too much of fructose could possibly be a problem. One could say, well, in a young, healthy person, the liver will handle it pretty much. But the time comes when the liver gets, especially as we grow older, time comes when the liver gets tired and then it can't take it anymore. So that's just a little bit of caution there.
Quick question. Can you mention the food that produces fructose? Can you mention the name again?
Fruits generally, fruits.
Oh, fruit, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you remember that from the name fructose. So it's kind of fruit, kind of carbohydrates, right? So I mentioned just a couple of them. I mentioned banana, I mentioned pineapple, but there are other fruits that generally all the fruits. But that's not to say fruits are bad. I don't want to create that impression. I just want to mention that too much of it will lead to too much fructose, and that could be a problem. In fact, I think the overarching theme here is too much of pretty much anything, no matter how good that thing is, ultimately becomes a problem. Okay, so we go to fats. Now, what are fats? Fats are oil. Let me just call it oils, okay? And they come in different forms. You have animal fats. Most of your butters are made from animal fats. Your butters, your lads, your ghees, and some of these things people used to cook, especially Americans, you know, they use animal fat to cook. So those are animal fat or lipids, animal kinds of oils. Then you have vegetable oils. There was a time when they used to tell us that vegetable oils are more healthy than animal oils. That's not supported by the science. That's not necessarily true. You have different kinds of vegetable oils. You have these things they call seed oils, like soybean oil, sunflower seed oils. All these seed oils, they are not preferred. They tend to cause inflammation. Now, what oil do you want to use? Olive oil. Olive oil. I completely, highly recommend olive oil for everybody listening to me. You know, there are other good oils you can use, avocado oil, but olive oil is so good. In fact, if I start talking about how good it is, we will just spend the rest of this meeting talking about it. But it has what they call monounsaturated fats, which are really, really healthy. So without really wanting to go too much into that. And there are other good oils. Olive oil is just the one that stands out for me. Then under fats and lipids, you have the essential fatty acids. These are acids. Okay, let me track back a little. When you eat fats, right, your body breaks them down into fatty acids. When they're being digested, they're digested as fatty acids. And it is the fatty acids that are absorbed, to go into your body to do the usual things they're supposed to do. Now, some of these fatty acids are essential. Life will not be possible without them. Some of them are very, very necessary for your cell membrane. Some of them are very necessary for the neurons, the cells in the brain, and all of that. And we must have those fatty acids. Then there are these other as fatty acids, they call the omega-3 and the omega-6. The omega-3 is actually the one that you want to be up. And these have been shown to be very, very heart healthy. They are the things that help to reduce, keep cholesterol in good level, keep your heart, blood vessels healthy and normal. And they're just good. And you get them. There are animal sources, there are plant sources. The best animal sources for omega-3 fatty acids are salmon, sardines. Those two really come to my mind right now because the fats of these fish are rich in these omega-3 fatty acids. If you actually notice, because of their importance, they actually, if you walk into the store, you will see supplements of omega-3 fatty acids. You see capsules being sold as supplements of omega-3. However, I still recommend you get your food or your nutrients from the food. I don't particularly recommend getting your omega-3 fatty acids through the supplements. But if you do, you're not doing any harm, There's no harm in that. So in order not to take much time, these are things that one really has a lot to talk about. I see somebody's hand up. I don't know. Oh, Brother Kwame. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the sardine in the can that we normally buy in the store, that the oil on it in the sardine, does it contribute anything to the goodness of the sardine, or it is not?
Yes, it does. Yes, good question. Good question. Well, those of us who like to buy Titus, if you go to the African store, they do have these Titus sardines. The ones I've bought, I noticed that they are in a soybean oil. So what I do is I drain off the soybean oil because I don't want to get as much of the soybean oil as possible. But the sardine itself is good, so I drain off the soybean oil and then I eat the sardine however I want to eat it, with whatever I want to eat it. But if you go to BJ's or Costco's, you will see sardine in olive oil. That's actually what I will buy. If you really, that one, you can eat everything. Lick the oil, eat the sardine. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So then let's go to fiber. Fiber, very, very, very important, my brethren. And the thing with this thing is fiber is not talked about that much, but it's been emphasized these days. Why? Because of a whole lot of benefits. Let me just give you a little story about fiber. There was a time we went on vacation to Ohio, and there was this zoo. I think that zoo was, I don't know whether it was in Cincinnati or so, I've forgotten exactly where. So the tour guide who was leading us around, when we went to look at the gorillas, all those big gorillas, she told us that those gorillas, there was a time that we are feeding them with, should I say, artificial food or maybe prepared food. After a few days of feeding those gorillas with prepared food, their blood pressure just hit the roof. And when they realized it, they changed it and they started giving them what the gorilla eats in his natural habitat, which is leaves and twigs of trees and stuff like that. Now, can you imagine what makes the difference in what the gorilla eats naturally and what they were feeding them artificially? Fiber. And when these gorillas started eating the natural foods that they eat in their habitats, guess what happened to their blood pressure? It came down. And it was like a light bulb lit up in my head. I said, what? So even fiber can affect your blood pressure. I said, So I started paying more attention to fiber. Now, and here is why. The fiber we're talking about, there are two kinds. You have the soluble fiber. Now, the soluble fiber is called soluble because it easily forms a colloidal kind of solution in the blood. And it acts like a mop. So when you have soluble fiber in the blood, it kind of mops up cholesterol and all these other hyperlipidemias kind of things that rise in the blood. It kind of mops them up and it keeps your cholesterol level normal. So when you go to the doctor, they do your cholesterol, you just see, boom, check. So and that's just one thing. There's a whole slew of things soluble fiber will do for you. I'll probably have to get more of those things and either send them to us in a text and all of that. Now let's go to insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is when you eat your kale or your broccoli, or even your carrots, there are parts of the carbohydrate that your body doesn't have any enzymes to digest. And that's what forms what you call in the biology, when we're being taught the biology, it's called the roughage of the food. Now, that roughage is this insoluble fiber. The first thing that does for your body is it helps the food in your bowel to move along, right? If you picture your bowel as a tube, the way it moves food along is to begin to, how let's say you have something inside a tube, a hollow tube, and you want to squeeze it to move it along. You begin to press one end behind the area you want it to move. And as you press, whatever is inside will begin to move in the direction as you're pressing it and squeezing it. I hope you get the picture of what I'm trying to describe here. Now, that is what happens when food is in your gut. The smooth muscles in your gut constricts and contracts and moves that food along, what is called peristalsis in physiology. It moves the food along. And it moves it along. When it gets to a certain area, the ones in that area will, God just programmed the body very well. The ones in that area will sense it, they will constrict. So you have a one-directional move as they keep on constricting. Now, if there is no fiber in the food, it's like there is no grip. There's nothing for those muscles to grip and push along. I don't know if you're getting the picture. There's nothing for them to, rather you have food sticking inside there. It doesn't really move. And that's what happens when you are constipated. And do you know that one of the things they give you to treat your constipation is fiber? You may not even know it. It's called Xylem. Even though they give it to you in a tablet or capsule form, they just put fiber in there. And when you eat it, it now goes in and simulates the natural fiber you would have eaten in your body. So the first thing fibers do for you is they help you move your bowel. And if you are anyone my age, well, of course, this applies to everybody, but as we get older, constipation is a big issue. If you don't eat fiber, you will be constantly constipated, and that's not good. That's not good. I don't want to go into all that. So that's one. Number two, which is very important, what fiber does for you. Inside your gut, there are a lot of bacteria living in your gut. These little guys are peeing, eating, pooping, all of them right there, all 39 trillion of them. Actually, that's the estimate. 39 trillion bacterial cells live in our gut. Can you imagine that? That's actually 9 trillion cells more than the entire number of cells in our body, which is estimated at about 30 trillion number of cells in our body. Now, when you have 39 trillion little guys living in your gut who are eating, peeing, pooping, you better treat them well, because if they poop the wrong thing or pee the wrong thing into your body, that means inflammation and all kinds of things begin to happen. So your microbiome, which is the technical name for these guys, is very, very important. Some people try to help by eating yogurt, because yogurt has what they call the probiotics. They actually have little bacteria. If you buy some kind of yogurt, you might see they'll mention the bacteria that lives in it. But you also have probiotic capsules that actually you swallow them, they introduce bacteria into your body. You have no idea how important this is until you know that there are certain diseases that are treated by introducing human fecal material into the gut to replenish the bacteria that have been lost. Maybe because of using broad spectrum antibiotics. That's one reason why you shouldn't get antibiotics anyhow, because antibiotics, sometimes some of them that are broad spectrum will just go and wipe out a good chunk of those bacteria. And the beneficial things that they do for your body is eliminated. And not only that, there is no competition now, because there are also harmful guys living there, but the friendly ones are more numerous. So they outcompete them, they outcompete the bad ones for food. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like, let's say you have one bad bacteria and then you have 100,000 good bacteria. They are all struggling for food. So the one bad bacteria will definitely not struggle good enough to get the food. So now, soluble fiber is actually what these bacteria eat. They are the ones that have the enzymes that are able to break down those parts of your kale or your broccoli or your carrot that your own enzymes cannot break down. So the bacteria breaks them down, and in breaking them down, they produce good things that help your body, like hydroxybutyrate, for example, one of the very good ketone bodies that helps to reduce inflammation. And also your gut, what they call your immune system, your gut health immune system. A good deal of your immune system is tied to your gut. So I don't have enough time to emphasize what this bacteria does for us. But if we eat the wrong food, we won't get the good feedback from them. And eating the wrong food means not eating fiber. And if you want to try what I'm saying, try to increase the fiber that you eat, assuming you're eating less fiber so far. Try to increase it and see, you will notice the immediate effect. Even the next time you go to the bathroom, you will see how easily your bowel moves, and you will feel the better for it. That's just a fact anyway. So let me go to the next one, which is a micronutrient. There's a lot to say about micronutrients. We've already talked about a little bit about vitamins. And I did emphasize folic acid for young women, vitamin B9. I also did talk about vitamin D, that we don't get enough of it because we don't go outdoors a lot. And another way to get vitamin D is by drinking milk or dairy products. They're usually fortified with vitamin D. However, not everybody tolerates milk. There are some people who don't tolerate milk. I stopped drinking milk a long time ago because I discovered at some point that it was really not good for me. But
good morning, Brother Chuks.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I just want to attest to the fiber, concerning the fiber statements you made. I remember was it 3 years ago? I had hemorrhoid. It was very, very severe. So I went to the hospital. In fact, I didn't know I would see myself at the emergency. And they tried everything they could. They couldn't push it back in. I was like, what is this? And they referred me to go see, what are they called, stuff? To go see a specialist anyway. I went there, he pushed it in, and he said, I don't need, give me a kind of steroid, and said, I don't need to do any surgery. But if it doesn't go down, then they will look into it and see what I could do. And all he did say was, go eat fiber. He gave me medication. I took a lot of fiber. And to my surprise, the thing just disappeared. It went back in fully.
Absolutely.
I encourage everybody fiber is very, very good. Though now it comes in and out. When I call him and say, you don't need surgery, you don't need anything, just continue eating your fiber, manage the type of fiber you take. And so it's just to attest on what you said concerning fiber. It's a very, very good source of, especially at this age. I'm 40 plus. So I'm happy. I mean, I'm very happy. I take too much fiber now. So it's just to attest on what you said concerning eating of fiber.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're making those little guys that live in your gut, you're making them happy too, you know. So they are responding in kind, producing, you know, good fatty acids. And you know, it's a whole lot. It's really a whole lot to talk about. Benefits of fiber. It's just a whole lot. And now that you mentioned it, of course, what you just mentioned is one of the complications of chronic constipation. You know, apart from a hemorrhoid, you could have hernias, you could have, you know, that's a whole slew of things. So, and it happens so frequently as we grow older. The constipation gets worse as we grow older. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of fiber. So we're just gone to micronutrients, vitamins. We've talked about vitamin B9, especially important, very important in women, of course, important in men too, because its deficiency can lead to anemia. You know, then we've talked about vitamins. You have the antioxidants. Now, let me explain to you a little bit what antioxidants are. Two of the vitamins that are good antioxidants are vitamin C and vitamin E. Very good antioxidants. And there's a lot of foods you can get this thing. Now, when we eat and our body begins to metabolize carbohydrates, especially carbohydrates, this same glucose thing, there are things that are produced in that process. As your body is producing energy, there are other things that are produced that are called free radicals. Now, these free radicals are highly reactive oxidative species. They are so highly reactive that if they touch DNA, they can damage DNA, you know. And the proteins in our body are made in such a way that they have a very fine, delicate of structure. And apart from the number of sequence of amino acids, the amino acids, they also folded in a certain form, what you call the secondary structure, and then the tertiary. Now, if a free radical touches a protein, just because of how reactive it is, it can denature that protein. Denaturing it means it will lose its normal structure and function. And these things are happening all the time because our body is constantly metabolizing. And Because these things are happening, cells are being denatured, cancer cells are being formed, inflammatory processes are going on. But then you ask your question, then why don't we just come down quickly with cancer or with this thing? Here is why. Our body is also at the same time producing what you call antioxidants. You know, these antioxidants are the things that will collide with these ROS or whatever they call them, the free radicals, and neutralize their reactivity, you know, just give them an electron and then settle them. It's like you see a bad guy roving around and then you just go and settle him. And then he's happy and he goes. That's what the antioxidants do. So our body produces instant antioxidants, but our body also is helped by antioxidants that we get from our food. And these are the micronutrients that we get from our food, the vitamins, the minerals. The minerals have their own thing too, like calcium, for example. If calcium is low in the body, immediately the heart, and then immediately the muscles will go into tetany, what they call low calcium tetany. It's just one example. There are just numerous things that we can talk about. So minerals, then you have the phytonutrients, and I've talked about the antioxidants and all of these. There are certain things in certain foods that you eat that you don't have an idea how beneficial they are. For example, your coffee, let me just give you an example of your coffee. Your coffee has what they call polyphenols. Now, these polyphenols are things that act, they act in a way that that I just described, you know, like the antioxidant thing. They go there and they reduce these inflammatory processes. And, you know, we just eat, and then God just does his thing with our body. Let me just put it that way. Wonderful, wonderful things. Like David said that he is fearfully and wonderfully made. But these things are being mentioned so that we will realize that even the doctors who treat us, they know that they are not the ones that are healing the body. They know that. Any doctor who claims that he's the one healing the body is either full of himself or he just wants to deceive you. You know, one of the hospitals in Lagos, it says we care, but God heals. I think that's their motto. And that's exactly the fact. So any surgeon you can think of in this world, it doesn't matter if he's the best surgeon in the world. He just does his own part. He's only helping. He can do all, if the body doesn't heal, forget about it. Forget about the most delicate, intricate surgery he has done. If the body's healing process does not kick in, it's all a waste of time. So God has put so much in our body to heal itself. To heal itself. In fact, when I think of the word, when he told the children of Israel, say, I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, that word healeth is a continuous present tense in today's English. When you look at a word in King James English, where it uses the word earth, healeth thee, it means I'm the Lord that continues to heal you. Continuous present tense. And God already did it even by the way he programmed the body. Every day, your body is knocking out cancer cells, neutralizing cancer cells that are being formed, neutralizing toxins, just doing things in your body that you're not aware of. So what we need to do is we need to cooperate with the body, with the mechanisms God has already put in, and we will not only be in good physical health, we will be in good mental health, and life will be, a longer life will not be a long, miserable life. It will be a long, good, fulfilled, active life. So we're going to go into fasting.
Bro, Chuks.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I want to ask you about my personal medical condition right now. About a month or two ago, I went for my annual checkup.
All right.
And before I went there, I realized the strain, the pressure on me, pain is reducing. And instead of me emptying my bladder one time, it would take me about 2-3 rounds to the bathroom to empty it. And I started realizing that when I sat down on my computer, that's when I get home, that's when I start doing research, when, where, what time to buy a vehicle. If there's a good deal, then I bid online. And I realized my feet is swollen. So I went to my doctor, and it happened to be the month that I'm going to do my medical. So I talked to my doctors and all the stuff, and they wish I've been dreadful, like it's never going to happen to me. And the nurse said, look, which one do you want me to call? They made doctor come test you. I said, I cannot put their finger in my butt. He said, well, it's few seconds, you won't even feel it. Then for you to be in a serious trouble. Anyway, they found that whatever enlightenment that I have, so they gave me a medication. And when I start using that medication, my using bathroom is excellent, but I realize I'm drinking a lot of fluid and I'm, discharging a lot too. But then they don't know whether I want to do surgery or whatever, what they call to shake your system using a camera. I'm not a doctor. What do you think what would you recommend that I do at this point? I'm still on the medication. And the second one is suddenly I start feeling a very excruciating pain on both left and right at the back of my back, like lower to my waist. Then my wife said, oh, maybe you're not drinking enough water, you may be dehydrating, or you may have a kidney stone or whatever they call it. I said, no way. So that 2 days I was using the painkiller, dumb me, something just tell me, why don't you drink a lot of water? Before I could go see my doctor, the pain disappeared because I was drinking a lot of water. So the first question is, how do I approach that issue of my bladder pain? And then the second question is, should I still go see the doctor to do the scanning, or I'm okay?
Okay, so I think your question is two major questions. One probably
Yes.
has to do with a prostate condition.
Yes.
From the way you described it.
Mm-hmm.
I think your doctor did the right thing. Usually, whenever somebody comes with a problem like that,
Uh-huh.
you want to see what medical solutions there are before you think of surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that there are medical conditions they can give for an enlarged prostate. It's probably an alpha blocker they gave you,
Okay.
which will not only help to relax the muscles around the area and allow the pee to come out, but it also might have contributed to the fact that because now when the bladder is full, you're able to go pee, and that's probably why you're noticing the peeing. Another possibility is they probably also give you a diuretic as well to help, sometimes a diuretic is given to you also for blood pressure. So if your blood pressure is high, one of the pills they will give you to treat the blood pressure could be a diuretic, and that causes you to pee a lot. You frequently go.
You're right. I do have that one too.
Okay, so because sometimes the medications come in a combination. You have the diuretic part, and then you have the other part of it combined in one pill. So that does happen. And then would you need surgery? I would say probably not. If you're doing well with the medicine, I would say don't be in a hurry for surgery. At the same time, if it does happen that they might say, okay, you do need surgery, ask for a second opinion whether you could use a non-surgical way.
Procedure.
Yes, they are non-surgical. There's this thing they have at MedStar they call CyberKnife. They don't use surgery. They just use some kind of specialized X-ray beam to go in there. And then there's another thing they use. It's like a pellet, kind of a radioactive radiation, right? So it's like a tiny pellet, maybe like the size of a grain of rice or thereabout, and they will insert it, and it will only act locally there. It will just, reduce whatever. But that depends on what it is, though. It depends. Just ordinary BPH, just the medication is that you're doing will be sufficient. And so if you're doing well with that medication, I would say don't seek any other solution, except if you're not doing well with it. And then,
I'm fine.
Yeah, so just continue with it. You should be fine. And then the second question was on the pain you had, right? Whether it was kidney. I wouldn't exactly know. It could, kidney stones can cause that kind of pain you're talking about in the lower back area. But it could also be pain coming from a muscle, that lower back area.
I thought as much too, yeah.
So maybe you strained yourself so much with your job and the muscles there get some kind of tense, and sometimes muscles can contract so strongly and then you feel pain. And then when you relax, or some doctors would treat it with an anti-relaxant kind of medicine. So once that muscle relaxes, you won't feel the pain. You just, it resolves, So since it has resolved and you don't have any symptoms anymore, you should be fine, but if it happens again, then there might be need to now investigate it to see whether kidneys are involved or not. But at this point, I'll probably say it may not be kidneys that is the issue.
Okay. Can I bring something to the table? I was listening to a program. She's a doctor. She's concerned about early death that is happening among the youth in Nigeria in particular. And, we don't have access to medical checkup and other stuff. And she strongly recommends baby aspirin, that people use one a day, that could help to clean the blood and reduce the high risk of heart attack and stroke and other stuff. What is your take on that statement?
Well, the strange thing is, if what we're talking about is atherosclerosis, the inside of the heart, blood vessels in the brain, in the heart, if it's beginning to form plaque inside, right? And that would lead to thickening of the blood or clotting of the blood. It generally doesn't happen at a young age, but the problem is that it is being noticed now more and more amongst younger people. And when you prescribe baby aspirin, it's typically people like us, older ones, and it is usually prescribed as a prophylactic for them, because what you rightly said, it helps to keep the blood thin. It keeps the blood flowing. And as long as the blood is flowing, the chances of clot forming somewhere and a heart attack happening is reduced. So maybe the doctor over there in Nigeria is noticing more and more atherosclerosis or conditions like that amongst the young ones. and then he or she is recommending giving them baby aspirin as a prophylactic. But here in the US, I don't see much of that kind of prescription for younger people. I do know that occasionally in the pediatric clinic, you do see younger people whose cholesterols are up and all those measurements for heart is up. And then those are usually like unusual conditions. But these days, because of the things young people do, you know, all these drugs they are taking, fentanyl, and all the kind of practices they are indulging in, these things are gradually creeping up amongst young people.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
But when you mentioned baby aspirin, this one is not a question per se, but it's a suggestion. You know, I've been taking baby aspirin until last year. I was told don't take it anymore, and then my wife too was told don't take it anymore because, especially my wife, you know, her situation makes her to be taking, not knowing one of the medicine is doing the same thing as the baby aspirin. Mm-hmm. So lately, she was going through episode of being disoriented and then like fainting, and it was so much. One time on the Beltway, 60 miles per hour, then she experienced that. But she has trained herself to park, not knowing the blood was so thin, it was going into the brain and it was leaking. That was so dangerous. So, pertaining to those in Nigeria, I know over there people don't go to doctors. You know what? There's a saying that when you die, where will you go for your money? I would suggest to my people over there, hey, no matter what, go and see a doctor. You know, because self-medication is common in Ghana. I don't know Nigeria, but it is very common. That's why the people, they die. When you ask them, oh, the grandmother is a witch. That is not true. We go through so much, but we don't pay attention to. So, yes, baby aspirin does good. At the same time, it was doing something bad, you know. So, I would suggest they should go and see a physician, no matter whatever it will cost them, because life is only one, and God gave it to you. Maintain it, you know. And then my second question actually is, when someone with a mechanical valve, what is because eating is part of our maintaining our body, and having a mechanical valve, what kind of food that is good that you don't have to clog your blood, you know, because the blood has to be certain level, you know, like a carrot. I found out that carrot clogs the blood, and carrot is very, very good. You know, we need fiber, we need vitamins. So what can one do when one has a mechanical valve?
Okay, that's a broad question, but let me try to address the first question, or yet rather your observation, which is
Fred
very
Hutchinson,
important.
Fred.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so you made a good observation in the sense of someone taking a medication that was already thinning the blood, and then now also taking baby aspirin. I will assume they were probably prescribed by different doctors, because the same doctor will know that there will be an interaction, between those medicines, and that will lead to a potentiation of the effect, of one on the other. It does happen. And when even some food you eat does interact with medicines, sometimes they will enhance the medicine and, increase the effect of that medicine. Sometimes they will antagonize the medicine and reduce the effect of the medicine. So those are things that your doctor would naturally tell you about and say, okay, if you're going to go on this medicine, don't eat this kind of food, or don't do that, and don't do that. So that's a good observation. And thank God that it was discovered quickly in the case of your wife that she needed to discontinue the baby aspirin. Thank God that was discovered in time. On the second question, on someone that has a prosthetic valve, what should they do? That's a broad question, but I do know generally that the cardiologist will also make sure that that person's blood will not, what we call stasis, that is reduced flow in that area, is avoided at all costs, right? Because it's a foreign body, there's a way the blood will interact with a foreign body, and there will be a tendency for some kind of sticking, or let's call it increased stickiness, because platelets are something that will always want to stick. Anything that irritates, it kind of attracts platelets, and they will want to start sticking around. So usually they are given some kind of an anti-platelet medicine. So if they are on that kind of medicine, then what will be advised is any food that antagonizes platelets, like any food that has too much vitamin K, for example, that you will have to avoid the food. There are some foods that has high level of vitamin K, so you have to avoid those ones, or you eat them in moderation. And that would be the general advice. But I will assume that somebody on prosthetic valve already has some medication that is given to keep the blood flowing. That would be my assumption.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Dr. Chuks, I have one question. But before I ask that question, let me respond to what Brother Sunday said. So Brother Sunday said something about the WhatsApp video from some lady in Nigeria, doctor talking about blood thinners. I got my parents sent me that. They're like, oh, you have to take this, and a lot of young people are dying from cardiac arrest and heart attack. So I talked to my wife. Of course, my wife is in the medical field, and she warned me strictly not to listen to WhatsApp messages. She said, if you need to be on baby aspirin, the doctor has to prescribe it for you.
That's right.
Because if you're self-medicating, like how your wife was self-medicating and ended up clashing with another medication she's taking, those are the things that your physician will know. If you hear something on WhatsApp and you start taking it, even Brother Sunday, even you're taking something else for your bladder, you don't know how that could even react to baby aspirin if you start taking baby aspirin. So those are things your doctor will know. Those are things that a pharmacist will know when you go to fill the prescription. Those are things that they will know. They will tell you what other medication you're taking. Okay, this will clash with this. I'm telling you, self-medication has killed a lot of people because they think that, oh, this is good. But meanwhile, they're taking something else that could literally be deadly when combined with this one that they just heard about and they want to take it on their own. So we should be very careful, especially us that live in the Western world that have take all these medications because for different things. Everybody has different medication for even something as simple as supplements, vitamins. You could take a supplement for this, a supplement for that. We're doing all these things, and then you now add another self-medication to it. Anything can clash at any time. And before you know it, now you're in a coma, you're in the hospital. Things so we should be very careful whatever we need, whether it's baby aspirin, whatever, anything that you hear about, you go to your physician, you do your checkup, and you ask them, can I be on baby aspirin for this? They themselves will say yes or no. If they say yes, then you start it. If they say no, they stay away from it. Let's stay away from WhatsApp messages, because people they say all these things on social media, and they think they want to go viral so get shares, but it might not be good for everybody. It's not good for everybody. So let's be very, very careful about that. My second question is to Dr. Chuks is, what foods are rich? What are the biggest foods you know that are rich in fiber that we can take to increase our fiber intake?
Okay, so yeah, good question. And also, just to comment on your first observation, very, very true. Don't take any medication just because that's what is trending on WhatsApp. People sometimes assume that maybe because it worked for one person and maybe there was a remarkable recovery, and then they will just extrapolate. That's anecdotal case, because I'll call it an anecdotal case. That's what it is. It's not a study. It wasn't a double-blind study that somebody did and then recorded some good scientific data on it. So when you extrapolate like that, it's dangerous because it could actually kill somebody. And you did mention one thing that is very good of note. Even supplements do sometimes interact with prescribed medications. So that's why sometimes the doctor will ask you, what supplements are you on? Are you taking any herbal supplements? Are you taking this? Because they will match that against their database of knowledge of possible interactions that medication is going to have. Yeah, so very important. Then second question on fiber. Your vegetables are generally rich in fiber. Kale is good. Spinach is good. In fact,
about
collard green is good. Yep, very good. But there are some things that are higher in fiber, like flaxseed, like chia seed. Those are really not that they're not really good in fiber. They're also good in the omega-3 fatty acids that we're talking about. As a matter of fact, the way I eat my fufu these days is I use the flaxseed and the chia seed. You can actually, there's ground version of it that's milled, like in powder form. You see, milled like gari. So sometimes I mix it with, I mix the milled one with a little bit of gari, because that reduces the carbohydrates. And then that increases the fiber. And when I make it, it looks like amala. when I pour hot water on it and mix it together, when you're looking at it, you think I'm eating amala, but it's actually a highly nutritious thing I'm eating, because the fiber content is really good. It's really good. I can tell you that. So yeah, there are other examples, but these are the good ones I can think of right now.
Thank you so much. Chia seed and
flaxseed, chia seed, they are really, really rich in fiber, and they also have omega-3 fatty acids as well.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Chuks. I really appreciate this wonderful health talk that you did for us today. May God replenish you. May God bless you. And just anything you have, keep sharing with us. We need this information, because every little aspect of the information that you share with us is gonna bless somebody. It's gonna bless someone. Like I never really paid attention to fiber, but now I have to, because I have to pay attention to my fiber, because how people go to a function and when they're serving salad, they say, no, I don't like salad. Let me eat. Where is the rice coming? When is the rice, and when is the fufu coming? You don't do that. Eat the vegetables too. Eat the salad too, because that salad is giving you those fiber that you need to absorb and to mop up the cholesterol that comes from the other food you're eating. So thank you so much, Dr. Chuks. Any other question? Okay.
And let me chip in. Eat the salad first, Eat the salad first before you eat the rice, because what is being shown now from studies is when you get the fiber in first, it modulates the rate at which your carbohydrate is absorbed, right? So if you eat your fiber first in form of the salad, and you later eat the rice, which of course I will suggest also don't eat too much of the rice, it will reduce the rate at which your blood sugar will go up, because the fiber will now go and act like some kind of a sieve or some kind of a sponge that holds the, in a physical form. So it's very important that we do these things. And it was Socrates who was quoted as saying, "Let food be thy medicine."
A quick question. What is the natural way to fight arthritis?
Good question. I will give you my own life experience in that area, even though I don't know whether it was arthritis that was the issue, but I was having this pain in my left knee to the extent that when I tried to climb the staircase, when as you're climbing on each knee, the left knee will be so painful that the strength in that area will give way because of the pain of that left knee. That did happen sometimes. But when I started realizing that my body may not be handling sugar very well, and I became conscious of the potential inflammatory problem. And also when I realized also the things are phytonutrients, like in vegetables, kale and all those things, what they do in the body. So I started increasing the amount of vegetables I eat, and then reducing, of course, try to reduce the carbohydrate, and the pain just disappeared like that. But specific to arthritis, some people are now able to treat it by just helping people to eat well, exercise well, and to the extent that they may not even need medication, like all this chronic taking of ibuprofen and what have you. It is possible to eat in such a way that the pain of arthritis will be, because what is arthritis? It's actually inflammation of the joints. That joint, whether it's a knee joint or the finger joints, whichever joints you're talking about. So once you reduce that inflammation, you have done a good job of reducing the pain. And inflammation is another big topic. Maybe someday we'll be able to talk a little bit about inflammation and what is really happening and what it does in your body, and how you can actually attribute so many things like cancer and all kinds of things to inflammation. So yeah,